Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. Today, once again, 2 shows in a row, all about zombies. Today, it's all about George Romero's classic Dawn of the Dead. And I've got probably the 2 guys in this universe who probably love zombie films specifically, even more than I do. We've got Mr. Chris Allo and Mr. Dan Brown from the Warehouse in Newburgh, New York. Greetings, guys. How are you?
We're good.
Good to see you.
Cool. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the film and the history of the film, but more importantly, Chris has the brand new Dawn of the Dead, what is it, 4K restoration on Blu-ray set that he wants to talk about. Chris, as most of you who know Chris by now, Chris has many versions of Dawn of the Dead he wants to show off. So it's a kind of show and tell here, and I'm going to have these 2 guys kind of talk a lot about this classic film, why it's such a classic, why when most people talk about the classic and great zombie films in cinema history, they ultimately usually talk about this particular one. So Chris, why don't you kick us all off a little bit of history about this film in 1978, right?
Yeah, I'll make it brief. Dawn of the Dead is George Romero's second zombie film. Came out originally in 1978. It's the sequel to his first film, Night of the Living Dead, which came out 10 years earlier, 1968. Was produced by Richard Rubinstein. He had a lot of help from Italian horror film director Dario Argento. The film, I think it's the greatest horror movie of all time because it's more than just a horror movie. It's a horror movie. It's an action movie. There's tons of comedy in it. It's just epic. It's just epic and massive. I mean, it's all over the place. It starts in a TV studio. It goes to the ghetto. Then you're out in the woods before they end up in an enormous shopping mall, the Monroeville Mall, which I've been to many times. And Jesus, I think it's the biggest mall I've ever been in. It came out in '78 at the Romero's first cut was at the Cannes Film Festival, or Cannes Film Festival. I'm sorry. The deal he made with Dario Argento was Dario Argento got exclusive rights in Europe, and also to do his own cut. So Dawn of the Dead wasn't actually released in America. First ever screening was in 1979 in New York, and then it got rolled out by United Film Distribution throughout the country, and it was a big hit. But the reason there are 3 different versions of the movie, you've got Romero's Cannes cut from '78, Argento's alternate cut from '78, and then the Romero U.S. theatrical cut in 1979. And of course, there's a lot of confusion about the titles because Romero wanted to call it Dawn of the Dead. Argento decided to call it Zombie in Europe. Like in Italy, it was Zombie, but in the UK, it was Zombies, Dawn of the Dead. For whatever reason. So then to capitalize on that, Lucio Fulci made his film, and it was titled Zombie 2 in Europe. But Dawn of the Dead came out in America under the title Dawn of the Dead. So when Zombie 2 came out, it was just Zombie in America. To make it even more complicated, Zombie is called Zombie Flesh Eaters in the UK. So, and like I said, Dawn of the Dead is Zombies, Dawn of the Dead. I have the poster in the garage. So, yeah, it gets complicated, but that's the gist of it. And, as great as Night of the Living Dead was, and we talked about this the other day, Pete, it really wasn't that big of an influence on other filmmakers. But, man, Dawn of the Dead had a huge impact. And then immediately following that was Zombie. And that's when filmmakers around the world and really the zombie pop culture phenomenon started. And of course, as you guys know, it just snowballed and snowballed. And there's been a million zombie different kind of movies. And then once we hit the Walking Dead TV show, which was hugely influenced by Dawn of the Dead, Greg Nicotero, who's the executive producer of Dawn of the Dead, was a special effects makeup assistant on Romero's Day of the Dead. And obviously the zombies have just taken over from there, and that's where we're at in a nutshell.
Interesting, 10 years between the first film and this film.
Right.
And like you said, so many people look back on Night of the Living Dead as kind of like the one that really started it all. There were zombie films before that, but yet not that big of a rush for other studios, other directors to crank out a zombie film after Night of the Living Dead. And even like Dawn of the Dead, even though it is the sequel, there's really nothing in common with the two films. There's no recurring characters. They don't really mention any of the events. It's like a totally separate film.
Correct. Yep. But yeah, it really was the impact of Dawn and then Zombie that really snowballed and took off. And because both of them were big hits worldwide, especially in the States.
Dan, why don't you throw some thoughts?
Interject? Well, I'm fortunate enough with my age, I was able to see Night of the Living Dead on a year after it came out at a midnight showing, which was at those days, it was doubled with Freaks, which had just come out of being banned for 36 years. Wow. So that was the midnight show. And the funny thing is that both of these films, both Night and in particular Dawn, had an impact on the way horror is perceived. Night of the Living Dead, people went to see this film and you go in there and you're watching it and it's like, well, there's ghouls and there's zombies. The only way we knew about this film is you saw a little ad because it was playing in a small theater, or you would hear a radio spot, which you've seen, which appear on a lot of the collector's issues. But you went there was the impact of, not only you're watching zombies and you're thinking of white zombie classic stuff. No, but that's your grandmother and she wants to eat you. And it just freaked people out. Well, and George Romero never wanted to make that as an example of society. It just happened to fall into place. The Vietnam War, the hero of Dwayne, and I'm just giving some history as it goes to Dawn. A black hero, which was not the intention, was not written for a black actor. Well, now we go 10 years later, and George Romero goes full blown into our society. And by the time it came out, I saw when it came out in theaters. And if anybody thinks, when you think about it, in the mid 70s, we were in the consumer culture. We were being absorbed by things. In other words, cable was starting to get nationwide distribution, although you'd watch the same 3 movies all day, but there was no commercials. Fast food was going from that great, what sorcery is this? You'd eat it once a year if you found it in Atlantic City, like McDonald's, to the point where they popped up all over. And then finally, the mall came in. And the mall was really a major blow to small town America. And a lot of businesses suffered. And I think that George Romero saw this consumerism, and he's admitted this, that the world he grew up, although it was in the Bronx, everybody had a small community. And now everything was mass consumption. And that's why when they go back to the mall, all of a sudden it's like, well, it meant something to them when they were alive. And that was like his first foray into this. But this also, as Chris said earlier, it also launched, the zombie thing did not take hold. And I think in Dawn of the Dead, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I think they finally say zombie in Dawn of the Dead, but once.
Yes.
Somewhere along the line.
Ken Faree says when the bikers are coming in, he says to Flyboy, he's like, if we don't get out of here, there's going to be 1,000 zombies in here.
Right. And that was in his first really referenced to it. Yeah. And so all of a sudden now, he's got, how would I say? Well, I lost my train of thought. That's the thing with getting age. When you're able to see Dawn of the Dead in 1968, this is how your age kicks in. But nonetheless, it was his first attempt into the commercialism and his sarcasm of it, as were his subsequent films. But it was a breaker because this, getting back to it, this kicked off the zombie craze. Yeah. There were a couple scattered things after Dawn, Midnight at the Manchester Morgue, the Canadian film, I think it's called Flesh Eaters or something like that from 1973, some obscure film. And then all of a sudden this, Zombie 2, City of the Living Dead. I mean, all of these Italian zombie films came out and George launched it. And this was pivotal. It was probably as important of a release as Night of the Living Dead was to independent filmmaking. Dawn of the Dead was to modern horror epic filmmaking. Right. And when you think about it, it's very simple. It's nothing over the top. Like I said, there's comedy, the music, whatever they're doing, and boom. And it was pivotal. a pivotal moment in horror and in George Romero's career, and it influenced countless people afterwards, from Greg Nicotero to The Walking Dead, which it always bothered me that what's his name, Robert Kirkman. I wonder if he ever really sat down with George, because George was kind of like a critic of The Walking Dead.
Right.
But if they ever sat there and he kind of mended fences or like this. But anyhow, let me get back on track. But that's my point. It was a very pivotal film in the world of zombies and in horror, and it put Romero to the next level, and he made a little money too. Thank God.
Right. Yeah, that was his biggest hit.
The film also kickstarted the special effects and makeup effects career of Tom Savini as well.
100%. Friday Dawn of the Dead, and then Friday the 13th. Right after that, Savini went from a nobody to a rock star. I mean, Pete and I talk the music stuff every week, and yeah, I mean, Fangoria was the circus or the Kerrang, and Tom Savini was the rock star. No doubt about it.
Never thought of it that way. Yes, it was circus. Yes, it was the circus of horror films, and that was the way you found out what was coming to the theaters. And years later, what came on DVD. This was your go-to guide. Yeah. It's and also with Savini being a rock star. After this, he appeared on the Letterman show, doing his makeup. He went to, and he collaborated, of course, with George on not only an acting aspect, but he went off to do Creep Show, which also pushed him to the next level. And he was in Night Riders, which is oddly enough one of my favorite Romero films, because it's just totally off the charts.
A little different, but yeah, he did the makeup and the burning. His personal favorite was The Prowler, which has great effects. So,
Maniac.
That's right, Maniac.
Yeah,
However, never mentioned the Ripper to him.
Oh, the Ripper, yeah.
Never mentioned that to him. As a matter of fact, I think I was at the Monroeville 40th anniversary. Did you go to that, Chris?
I went to the 25th anniversary of Night of the Living Dead in Monroeville, so that was 1993. I actually brought my VHS of the Ripper, and Savini did sign it.
Okay. By the time the 40th anniversary for Dawn of the Dead came, it was a great interview. Both Greg Nicotero and him were on stage, and they're sitting in the main area where they put the George Romero statue at. And somebody that says, anybody have any questions about that? And somebody said, hey, the Ripper. And he goes, next. He did not want to talk about that whatsoever. So I guess he got hard about that as years went on.
I will say Tom Savini, a really nice guy, and he used to be at Chiller Theater every single year. And he was the one star who would never charge money for an autograph or anything. He basically just purchased a table, and he would just sit there and meet with the fans and sign whatever they wanted.
Yeah, I enjoyed being there.
Too, it was not looked at as a money-making proposition for all of these celebrities. I mean, because it's totally different now. Now Savini and everybody does charge for signing, but yeah, back then it was very different. And that's why the Ripper's a shitter. Since he was signing for free, that's why I brought him that and signed that. A true story. When I was I'll never forget this. I have the Savini baseball cards. There was like a set of 50 of them, and they came. It was like I think it was 41 because you got 40 cards and one autographed card. But because Savini was like that, Pete, and would do free autographs, I saw him at that convention I was at in 1993. Somebody brought him the set and had Tom Savini sign every single card, 40 autographs for free. And I remember being like, even back then, being like, really? You're going to be that guy? Like, that's horrible. But Savini
there's one in every crowd, right?
Oh, they show up with the 40 albums or the 20 posters. They wait at the back door. You've probably been there, Pete. He's coming out.
It's like going to East Coast Comic Con a couple of years ago, and we're waiting to talk to Joe Sinnott, who's like 92 years old, and there's this guy who brought like a stack of books like this for him to sign. I'm like, he's 90 years old, dude. It's like really gonna get, and may he rest in peace because he passed away last year. But I mean, really, it's like, come on, use your head, man.
So yeah.
So needless to say, I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Do you know, I don't know if Chris knows this. You know that one of a kind of a, not a prominent extra, but he's in a number of scenes in Dawn of the Dead. He's an extra as a zombie. He lives right in Newburgh.
Which one is that?
Okay, if you know that, well, you've seen the, apparently, according to Pete, you've seen the new 4K release at least 62 times. So I think you have it memorized by this point. The black maintenance zombie. There's a guy who's wearing a pair of blue. He shows up as they're dragging bodies into the couple shots in the mall. He's also very prevalent when they start putting bodies in the cooler of the restaurant.
Okay.
But he's wearing like a pair of blue coveralls, like custodial coveralls. And yeah, so I'm sitting there, and when I went to the 40th anniversary, I'm going on the screen for the, the weekend thing for the Dawn of the Dead. And I'm looking, and it says this name, Chris Sullivan. And I'm going, God, that sounds like a familiar name. Chris Sullivan. I've heard that somewhere. I know it. So it says you go onto his page of his bio. I said, I know this guy. He's a jazz musician that lives up here. Wow. And he was in the Dawn of the Dead. And he lives right around the corner from me.
Wow.
And so I met him finally. I'd heard of him. And I went down to Monroeville Mall, and I said, it's pretty wild. I have to drive 300 miles to book you for my establishment, although you only live right around the corner.
That's funny.
And it's it. But he's in the film. But he started going because we're talking about the money aspect. He goes, I went there. He's charging what everybody else is.
Right.
He goes, my God. He goes, I did so well. It's because the adulation for this film is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. And I think it seems like it's only grown over the years.
I agree.
So now, the way this conversation is going to go. So we've all seen this film plenty of times. We've all in the theaters, festivals, what have you. How about all the times we purchased this film?
Yeah.
So I will say, okay, I've purchased this 3 times in my life. I had one of the original VHSs, then one of the original DVD prints. And then, I don't know, when did this come out? 10, 15 years ago? I don't even remember. I bought the ultimate DVD 4-disc.
Which is a nice box set in itself.
It's a really good box set.
Yeah.
At the time, when this came out and this was released by, who the hell put this out? Anchor Bay. We were told that this was probably going to be, it's even called the Ultimate Edition. They're like, it's never going to get any better than this. And even like a year ago, before they released the new set, someone said to me, hold on to this because this is the best it's ever going to be.
Yeah.
All right?
Well, I was actually
it's not the case anymore now, right? So Chris, why don't you take us on a little tour of you? I mean, you've got me beat with the amount of times you play.
And what I'll do, since I don't have my toys, if he holds something up, I'll go, I have that. Or, no, I don't.
Actually,
that's the best way. It's like
I grabbed a few toys too from Dawn of the Dead, just a couple, but yeah, from the movies, the movie side, I purchased Dawn of the Dead 11 times so far. I have the 2 bootleg VHS, so the alternate cuts. I didn't bother to show them because they're just bootlegs, but this is my VHS tape from the 80s.
I had that one.
I got the one on the hard shell case from Thorn, from HBO Video.
The white?
Yeah, the original pressing.
I thought I had that one, but maybe that was just the one I rented. But yeah, that's the one I had. This is the first U.S. DVD of just the theatrical cut from sometime in the. Oh wait, no, I forgot the Laserdiscs. All right, so first was the VHS, then was Laserdisc. This was in 1993, and this is just the U.S. cut. Then the perfect complement to that, and this was really nice. This came out in 1995. This is the Japanese Ford Laserdisc box set of the Dawn of the Dead Perfect Collection.
Perfect collection.
Two gatefolds in here, and this is the Argento cut and the can cut. Then I think this was 1998. Came the 3-disc Dawn of the Dead U.S. box set of the can cut.
Oh, I never had a Laserdisc player. I got on board too late.
They were great. They were better than VHS. But yeah, it was basically the father of DVD. So then came the so excited to get the first DVD of Dawn of the Dead. Then that was replicated into the 1, 2, 3, 4 DVD box set, which yet Pete showed was the ultimate collection at the time. Then I got the bootleg Mall Hours cut of Dawn of the Dead, which combines most footage from the 3 different cuts, which is
that's the one. That's the one in English, because there was a German one that floated around for years.
Yes,
that was only a German language, but this is the English cut. Yeah, somebody.
Of course, it's unofficial, so that's why it's not included in the new box set. Then came the Blu-ray of Dawn of the Dead, and I believe this was just a U.S. theatrical cut. And then
what's the bonus material on that one like? Because that is out of print already. That one there.
Right. I mean, they did port some of this stuff over. Like the main thing is the audio commentary with George Romero, Tom Savini, and Chris Romero, who used to be Christine Forrest, his wife. This was ported over onto the new box set. But one thing I think that was not ported over was the Monroeville Mall tour, and there's a Monroeville Mall commercial. So if you have the old box sets like I do, I would definitely recommend hold on to it, because it's got a lot of stuff, but it hasn't ported over everything. There are, not including the running commentaries, there's a Blu-ray of extra features, and there's 7 hours of extra features, and this is the new version. This is the import from Second Sight Films. This is the 4K box set of Dawn of the Dead. It's 7 discs in total. It's this version is 3 4K discs, 1 Blu-ray, and then 3 CDs. There's also
even the whole soundtrack, don't they?
Yeah,
The total soundtrack. Yeah.
But yeah, it has the entire Goblin soundtrack, and then it also has a 2 CD of the all the library tracks that Romero used, which is cool because I have one of the previous editions, and it's just a single disc. This one combines everything, which is a double disc. But it looks phenomenal. I mean, I have some notes. I don't know if we have time to run through it all.
Yeah.
But the theatrical cuts definitely looks phenomenal. It's from the original negative. The colors are definitely improved. It's a little bit darker. When I watched it with my buddy Sean, he's the one that noticed that the blood was definitely the darkest and the reddest it's ever been. And in fact, when you go through, I'm colorblind, so I didn't notice it at first. But once Sean said something and we went through the whole movie, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like there are several times in the commentary and in the extras where Tom Savini blames the blood on the 3M Corporation, because that's where they bought the fake blood from. And he said it looked like melted Crayola crayons.
Looked like Pepto-Bismol almost.
Yeah. It doesn't look that natural, but now they did, they did color correction and they cleaned everything up. It looks amazing. There's on the first disc, there's 5 audio tracks, including 2 running commentaries. I mean, it's a phenomenal disc. It looks better than it's ever looked before. The second disc is the can cut. It looks a smidge softer than the theatrical cut. It only has 2 audio tracks, and they ported over the Richard Rubinstein commentary track from the Ultimate DVD that you and I have. This is longer. It has longer scenes in it. Like it has the famous scene with Joe Pilato from Day of the Dead, who was Captain Rhodes. He was on the dock with some of the road cops. And that scene was completely cut out. There's a lot less use of the Goblin score. There's just a lot of longer scenes. It's basically a longer, but I would not say a better version of the theatrical cut. Romero always felt that the U.S. theatrical cut was the best one, and as a huge fan, that's my preferred. If I'm only going to watch it once, that's the way to go. And then disc 3 is the 119-minute Argento cut. That one they didn't take from the original negative. They had to take it from an interpositive. And I know, even though I did Hudson Horror for years, I'm not a film expert, but the interpositive is a couple steps down from the negative, so it's not as clean and sharp. It's definitely softer, but it still looks great and looks better than any of these other versions I have. It's missing a lot of the comedy, because Argento got his, it was his way. So he felt the comedy would not play to European audiences that well. So he cut most of it out.
None of his films have that element anyway, so that's not surprising.
True. It's much quicker editing. The thing that I really like, being a gun enthusiast, man, the gunshots sound amazing in the Argento cut. I mean, when they're firing guns, and they're loud. And listen, guns are loud, so I really appreciated that. There's alternate takes, like one that I've seen all these versions multiple times, but until I sat down and watched them all, because I watched the box set 5 times now, until I sat and watched them all, like the part when they're on the, and this is why a composite cut is kind of almost sort of pointless, because there is alternate stuff. When they land on the mall and they look in the windows and the skylights, on the Romero cuts, they just look in the skylights. Well, in the Argento cut, he used an alternate take. So Peter has to shine a flashlight through the skylight because it's darker. And I'm like, oh, holy shit, I never noticed that before. So there's alternate stuff like, and Argento used like different music than Romero did. And he used different library tracks. And Argento goes ballistic, goes over the top with using the Goblin songs, just like he does in his other movies, over and over again. Like at one point, I was sitting in the movie watching, I actually threw up my hands and go, are you fucking kidding me? You're playing this song again? Just over and over and over again. I'm like, oh, Jesus. So, but it's cool. It's great to have, all the different versions. Oh, and probably the most interesting thing, there's a line of the movie that they used a lot in Europe and Japan where Flyboy's talking about, I can't believe things got out of hand. And so Peter says, yeah, well, let's say the lady gets bit. Are you going to be okay to chop her head off? Which is such a crazy line. I mean, who would think of that as a marketing line? But that was used on like video covers and posters. Even on the Japanese box set, they mention it, which is so strange. But it's great to have. And like I said, there's 7 hours worth of extras on the one Blu-ray that's in the set. So if it's really hard to get now, but if you can get it,
could you open it up and show it a little bit?
Sure. So yeah,
it's got a great book too.
This is the outer cover. So then this has all the details on all the extras. So then you're left with this. So that's the back. I do love that they use the U.S. poster. I probably have, I don't know, maybe 25 different posters from around the world for Dawn of the Dead. I could have spent all day, Pete, folding them unfolding them in front of you, but that'd be boring as shit. But I love that they use the U.S. poster art. And in green, this is the rarest of all the Dawn of the Dead posters, because it was green was initially used, and then they switched to red. But it's, at least I've been told this is green. I'm colorblind, so I don't know.
It is green. It's like a lime green.
So then
Zombie green.
Zombie green. There you go.
And you've got 2 books. This book is fantastic. Dawn of the Dead, Dissecting the Dead. They go over behind the scenes and interviews and memorabilia. My only complaint about the whole box set is I got the olds, and the let me show you. Like the text is really small. I'm like, man, I can't read that. I'm too old. I gotta get glasses. So like this book though is so cool. If they put this out in a full size, I'd buy it again in a heartbeat. They did a great job. Then they reprinted the novelization of Dawn of the Dead, which I already have like 3 copies of, but it's cool to have another one. And then it's 2 separate digipacks. They both have the same artwork. I think they should have, again, this is a minor complaint, but they should have made one of them different. Because this one is the The 3 soundtrack discs. One is The Goblin, and the other 2 are the library tracks with like songs like The Gonk and I'm a Man and all the weird, quirky little things that they play throughout the movie. And this is the meat and the potatoes here. This is the movie and the extras. So it's 3 4K discs and 1 Blu-ray. But you know, buyer beware, because you can 4K discs are compatible around the world, but the 1 Blu-ray of extras is region B locked. So you will need an all-region player to play that. Now, there is also another box set identical to this that's all Blu-rays. So instead of 3 4Ks and 1 Blu-ray, it's a little bit cheaper, but it's 4 Blu-rays. But again, those are all region B locked. So
And those are sold out too. I think right now they're tight. They're getting tight to get.
I got mine from diabolicdvd.com, and I know they recently got some extras in. And I think it was, I know I initially paid, I think it was like 120 or 130 bucks, which honestly, for everything you got, is a steal.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there's copies of this on eBay right now. I've seen them going for 300, 400 bucks a pop. But I know Diabolic DVD was taking a wish list. Is it a wish list or a wait list? I'm sorry. So you can like go to their page and check out if they have any copies left or if they're getting copies again. Because I would, as someone who's bought this movie so many times, you know, I don't know if this is the last time I'll ever buy it, but I can say, wow, it is the most amazing version that has ever come out this far. I mean, you know, like Dan, I mean, I've seen this 5 times in the theater, and I don't think it ever looked as good as it does on home on this new 4K version. It looks unbelievable.
Yeah, because I do have actually a couple things you didn't have, but I can't find them. But anyhow, I have the Arrow release of that on Region 2.
Yes.
Which
now,
was the Blu-ray.
I didn't get the Arrow. It's the same transfer.
From actually not well, that transfer from the Arrow going back a few years ago, that first one that you held up, the American Blu-ray.
Right.
That one. Yeah, they used the same master on that one.
Right.
I believe. But the one for the box that you just got, that was a brand new scan. That was a 4K.
Yes.
You know.
And the original negative. They cleaned everything up. They color corrected it. Michael Gornick, the director of photography, was involved and supervised the theatrical version. I mean, it looks unbelievable. I mean, listen, if my house goes on fire and I can only grab 1 disc for my collection, I think this is the one. I mean, I think I'm going to let that 27 disc Star Wars box set burn, but I'm grabbing this.
Be easier to find the 27 disc box set from Star Wars.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You know,
and that was that's a great point, Pete. When you were talking about it, and you were like, "Who's got the room?" I'm like, "Dude, look at this. It's very compact. I mean, for 7 discs and 2 books."
So if you could, Chris, if you could put it next to this one,
sure,
and let everybody see just the difference for those of you who have the DVD set. So you know, yeah.
So it's really, you know, now keep in mind the Anchor Bay is just 4 discs.
Yep.
The new one is 7 discs and 2 books.
Right.
But you know, if you compare, so you know, it's what? Sure, it's
half.
Plus it's a heavier box too. It's a, you know, it's
so yeah, it's
not much difference.
A little more than double the size, but it's definitely more than double the product.
And quite frankly, if you're concerned, like if people looking behind me, if you're concerned about space on a shelf, technically, if you buy that, you could take the 4K and Blu-ray digipack out, which is the same height as a normal Blu-ray case, put that on the shelf and take the rest of the box and put it away in the closet somewhere.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. You could totally slide those out. One of my favorite things is that it does have 2 versions of the excellent Roy Frumke's documentary, Document of the Dead, but I did have to laugh when they included that because I already have 3 copies
there you go.
Document of the Dead on its own. So I was like, oh man. So now I have five copies of that.
Now you know that you remember you did a screening of Spookies down in at Hudson Horror or Alamo like this. Well, you know, the director Brendan Faulkner, who wasn't at that screening, and Frank Farrell, who was the producer, they were extras in Dawn of the Dead as well.
Correct, and they talk about it in the documentary.
So you saw the Spookies, yeah.
With my buddies Mike Ingold and Glenn Baisley.
Yep.
That documentary. So yeah, they definitely mentioned, that was my favorite part, was they talked about, I actually said to those guys, it's like, oh shit, I wish there was less on Spookies and more on Dawn of the Dead. But I do love Spookies, but just
the documentary kind of clears up that film a lot. So getting the Spookies, but yeah, but I've known Brendan for like 30 years, and he would always say to me, he goes, I was in Spookies. You know, because I met him on Spookies because I was friends with Arno Garguilio, who was an old makeup artist, who was who had Gabe Bartalos worked for. When they were doing Spookies over, and then so I met Brendan like in the early 90s, I guess, and he kept telling me, I was in Dawn of the Dead, I was in Dawn of the Dead. And I would sit there and go, what are you talking about? I was at Pie Zombie, and I'm going, what are you talking about? And I watched the movie over and over and over, and then finally, until he finally got me a screen cap. And he's much heavier, that I realized, oh, there's Frank and there's Brendan. For the years, I thought he was just pulling my leg, saying like, yeah, I was at Woodstock, so you were in Dawn of the Dead. And but yeah, it's a funny story with that. But nonetheless, that's a great. I bought the 4K by accident, but I'm glad you said that. So that means, just to clear something up, if I have a 4K US player,
yes,
I can play the 4K box set. The films.
Right. The 3 4K discs, the 3 different versions, will play for you. The only thing that won't play for you
is the Region 2 look,
which is the Blu-ray of all the extras.
Right. I've got a Region 2 or a multi-system. So I was just curious, because I sat there and said, oh my God, now I got to buy a 4K TV. I got to buy a 4K thing just to watch this. So then I went out and bought the Blu-ray set. It's on its way. So I could have it, because they said the improvement over the Arrow set. But that's good to know, because you cleared up a lot for me, because I would Google all the time. Can 4K play the? Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Consultation for videos. Consultation for video orders, you know.
And yeah, I grabbed a couple toys if you want me to show those, Pete, real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, so yeah, these are from. I flew to England to see Black Sabbath in 1999 for their first farewell tour. And when I was over there, I picked these up. These were very expensive at the time. These were the Japanese cult classic figures. This one is the Plaid Zombie. This one is Flyboy. Mm-hmm. At the time, these were like ridiculously expensive. I was lucky to find them on clearance in a Forbidden Planet, awesome comic book store in London.
There you go. Yeah.
So is that the time that you had to get rid of everything in your suitcase so you could pack those to bring them back to the States?
No, those were the trips with my buddy Frank White. That's when I used to throw my clothes out to get all the CDs and toys and comic books back home.
That's the importance. We could always buy a new wardrobe.
Exactly, right?
Just.
That's the Tom Savini one. These came out years ago. This is the series 2. I have series 1 too. Also, these are the Night of the Living Dead Megos. My favorite toys are Megos and Star Wars figures. I always wanted this. This company was supposed to do Mego figures, but they never did. But these just came out. My buddy Sean got me these because he's always buying me cool stuff. These are the new Distinctive Dummies Mego figures. They're very rare. I'm sure very expensive if you can find them. But this is the Airport Zombie and Flyboy, and they're 8-inch scale. They're numbered, limited edition out of 60. So I don't know.
60. Wow.
60. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, now there's 59.
That's right.
Yeah. My buddy Sean got me this. This is the Flyboy Figma figure from Japan. It's like a 6-inch figure. It's got multiple heads. So you could make it Flyboy. You could make it the Lenny Lee's character. He gets a hatchet in his head. What else? This came out about a year ago. These are the Mezco 112 collectives. they're 6-inch figures with all cloth clothing and tons of pieces. It was a 2-pack.
Yeah. Those are nicely done.
Yeah, I would show the inside, but they're all covered. You can't see anything. What else? Oh yeah, my buddy Sean always gets me cool stuff. He knows I love Star Wars figures and GI Joes in 3 3/4. So these were custom figures done in the 3 3/4 scale. These are both generic zombies from Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yeah.
And then these are they did the 4 heroes. They did Peter. Flyboy.
I think we're gonna have to get you and Steve Keeler to open up like a pinball and toy fun house or something like that.
Sure.
And charge admission.
I got the Roger
Museum.
figure somewhere, but I got it somewhere. But yeah, I think that's all I grabbed to show you guys. But just a couple things.
That's pretty wild.
Here's it. They actually put out one of those. It was the company TSR. They put out a board game in 1979, 80.
I have that. It's
Okay.
sealed, original 1979 air in it. Dan, I always wished I would find a second one because I would love to play it. But since the one I bought was sealed, I
No, they're going for pretty pennies now. I mean, you could find a bargain now and then, and so forth. But yeah, that was 1979 again, 1980, and that was before board games actually became big and doing things like this.
And that was really back then. That was like the only collectible you could get. The Dawn of the Dead board game, and you could get the soundtrack album, which I didn't bother to show, but like that was it. It wasn't until years later where they did toys. I got the McFarlane toys too. They did 2 figures, but I can't find them.
They did Harry Krishna zombie.
Krishna and was it the Plaid zombie or Flyboy? I think it was
Flyboy and the Harry Krishna zombie and what do you call it? Airport zombie.
They did. Okay. All right.
Airport zombie. And then
I know
next year I
was gonna say the only thing less organized than my CD and my movie collection is my toy collection. So
the only reason I know where they are is they're down in my workshop and I have them tacked up on the wall. So if it wasn't for that, no, they would be in a box somewhere. But no, it's it's and the other thing, I think next year after that years later when they did Day of the Dead, they actually put out Dr. Tongue and Bub.
Yes. I have those. Those are definitely cool.
They're actually well done.
Yes.
As far as detail oriented and things like that. But yeah, it was so funny when I was at Chiller many years ago, and it was a year that they had George Romero was there, Dawn of the Dead, the late Gary Clark from Day of the Dead, Laurie Cardill, and they were all there, and Galen Ross was there, the whole Dawn of the Dead, even David MG. It was the last time I saw David MG. This is going back about 20 years ago, over 20, because he doesn't do conventions anymore. And Galen Ross was convinced I was Kevin Clement, who runs Chiller. And she kept saying, "Thanks for having me back. Thanks." I'm okay, sure, whatever. And she goes, "Here, take pictures." I'm going, she's autographing stuff she's giving to me. I'm going like, "No, you don't understand." She goes, "No, I'm so happy you brought me back." I'm going, "Okay, you're very welcome, and thank you for the photos."
That's awesome. That's funny.
I
ran into her not at a convention of all things, but there's like 2 versions of Saxon and 2 versions of Venom. There's 2 versions of Goblin. So I went to see Claudio Simonetti's Goblin at a club in the city with my buddy Sean a couple of years ago. Obviously, it was before the world collapsed. And it was in New York City, and Galen Ross was there in the audience just watching the band.
She's a director now. I think she does directing now, or she's behind the scenes.
Yeah, she's won awards. I haven't seen any. She's done like all serious stuff. I mean,
she was young when she made that film, and she was like that was like one of her first acting jobs.
I think it actually was, because I think in one of the commentaries she said that she gave a resume with all these fake acting credits. And I think it was her first actual acting gig.
Well, the urban myth about David MG is how he got the part of Flyboy is Romero walked into a restaurant. The guy he originally cast for the job, okay, bailed out, and he had the leather jacket, the flyboy jacket. And he saw David Emge. He was a waiter in the restaurant. And he said, this guy fits the part. He wondered if you could fit into this jacket, you have the part. Boom.
Right place, right time, right?
That was his audition. Right place, right time. I mean, he was an actor, but that's how it happens. All of a sudden, you fit in the thing. That's it.
Incredible. So there you have it. Lots of fun talk about a classic film, Dawn of the Dead. So for everybody watching, if you've got your Dawn of the Dead story to tell, whether it's a release that you have or an experience seeing it in the theaters or at a festival or whatever, put it in the comments below. All three of us will be checking it out. I want to thank Dan and Chris for joining today and talking about a really cool film that we love quite a bit. That I think when all is said and done in Hollywood movie history, horror movies, zombie movies, Dawn of the Dead, up at the top, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I still think, when I have a great deal of favorite films, and my love of film goes to many genres, many eras, and things like this. And I'll never put Dawn of the Dead on my list. And people said, why? I said, because George Romero is in his own place. All three of those zombie movies to me are my favorites. I don't put them in a list with other favorite films. They will always be on their own. And that's how I view at least his trilogy. And I did like Land of the Dead. And actually, for the most part, I didn't mind Diary of the Dead. The other one, the last one.
The last one I didn't really like, but yeah.
Cowboys and Zombies. No, I just couldn't. But
Land, I like. Diary, I'm kind of like on, but Land is.
I like that. Well, that's his social commentary on everybody's obsession with that time. Putting stuff online.
Yeah.
So but
again, he was ahead of his time because as bad as it was 10 years ago, it's only worse today.
Oh yeah, no, it's even worse. Everybody, no, it's ridiculous. I put my phone in my head. No,
I've only bought Survival of the Dead 3 times, but I hate that movie. That's terrible.
Only 3 times.
I watched it, my jaw dropped. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But anyhow, one day, we'll go off the record with this, but one day, if you guys come down to the restaurant for a beer when I open back up, I will share you a very funny story about another connection or its situation with Dawn of the Dead, Monroeville Mall, and Spookies. It's a very funny story.
Okay.
But I'll say it offline because some people have to be mentioned, and it's another fine mess I got myself into. So,
Sounds good, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Stay tuned for tomorrow morning. Martin Popoff and I are going to rank the studio albums of Accept. Rich Catino and I are going to rank the Overkill albums on Sunday. More Monsters Den coming up next week. Of course, Chris and the rest of the Hudson Valley Squares on Monday night. Hope to see Dan Brown again soon. So I am Pete Pardo for Dan and Chris. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.